So in the interest of time, we'll take a few questions from our audience. And may I request also our speakers to limit their responses so that we can proceed to the next part of the program. Okay, for our first question, it comes from Rodelio Sabade. How do you think teachers can connect with students who are in areas with unstable or no internet connectivity? Specifically, how will monitoring and assessment be done? So this is for Dr. Bautista and Dr. Alfonso.
Sage, will you be answering that?
So at the moment we are going to, students are pre-registering so that they will be able to say exactly where they will be staying during the time. So you would know whether these are areas without signals. So basically the learning the course packs that are being developed, and this is a little new in UP. We don't do course packs in the beginning, and now everybody has to do course packs. So the course packs are going to be in the learning management system, but for students who are in remote areas, so this is first the delivery of materials and independent, it is going to be guided independent study because the materials will actually have the guides, so you have the assignments, and then they will be delivered. Okay, we're dealing with the copyright issue here, although the code, the Philippine, code of the Philippines for copyright, protect copyright, actually has a provision, and it has to be a limited number and in a classroom. And we're now defining the classroom as not the four-wall classroom, the classroom where our students are. So for the limited students, and we have discussed this with lawyers, you just have to stamp that this is only for this class. They will be delivered to these students either in USBs if they have computers, or in print if they don't have computers. And here we will be asking, and the constituent universities have been talking with the local government units to help deliver if the couriers cannot reach the area. Now the monitoring, we have to know exactly which students don't, because the signals are poor, exactly which areas don't have signals, because in the second semester, the experience was there are not too many students who are in such areas, and many of our students have phones. They don't have to be smartphones, but basically they are reached by our faculty using Messenger and Facebook. I'm not a Facebook person, so I didn't even know that one of our faculty members was very upset because her students, they were not answering her when she sends SMS. And she asked them why. It's because Facebook comes with whatever is free in the phone, and Messenger is free. So that if they cannot be reached because they have no smartphones, well, we will have to identify and figure out how they will be monitored. Meantime, we are also exploring, because internet connections in the Philippines they're very poor. Even in UP, sometimes people freeze. So basically we are exploring an alternative, because the Philippines is not yet ready to really, although we are also lobbying with the ICT for better internet, exploring television airwaves for the last mile. And I think, and we have been discussing with Joel Marciano, and I think they have developed a device, and I don't know if Secretary Boy can talk about it. They are developing a device for digital TV. So even if you have an analog, you can actually use it. And then we are now in discussions with television, those who have franchises, because they don't use all of their frequencies. So if they can be used at certain times, and then if it's digital, you can download, or at least you can interact. But I'm not too familiar with the technology. But these are big challenges at the moment. So we wouldn't know until the pre-registration is over who are really going to be almost left behind, but you try very, very hard that they will not be left behind.
Okay, before we move on to the next question, I think Professor Pernia has a quick question.
It's silent.
Professor, yeah, I think you're still on mute, Professor Pernia.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you, Gobet, for the presentation. Yeah, I think this additive manufacturing is really what the Philippines needs, because we have really lagged behind badly relative to our ASEAN neighbors in terms of manufacturing per se. But with this, if we can really roll this up, and if it really takes off, then we can pole vault from the ordinary type of manufacturing to this very modern and sophisticated type of manufacturing, and also more productive. Just one question: would we need so much raw materials? What kinds of raw materials do we need for additive manufacturing? I think some waste materials can be used to go into additive to go into 3D printing, a 3D printing process, right? And so yeah. Anyway, that's all that I wanted to
Yeah,
say.
thank you, Secretary Pernia. That was, really a vote of confidence. Yes, the raw materials, basically, the big ones can be divided into plastics, metals, and maybe geomaterials like cement. And with a lot of the construction going on and a lot of the scale up in many industries, plastic probably will be the number one. Now, the local sources that we can probably take advantage of, like what I mentioned, is abaca as a way of reinforcing plastics, even fibers from bamboo or piña, or those things can be used for construction or enhancing geomaterials. Plastic industries can rely on polyethylene, polypropylene, but really the most important commodity polymers are still imported. And of course, metals, we don't have much metal industries. So in general, we can do research, a lot of research really, in finding more local sources, or at least manufacturing local ingredients for 3D printing as a way of propelling its wide uses in Philippine society. Thank you.
So there's no need for imports, especially in the early stage of this process.
Yes, for raw materials right now, we can start early with research from local materials, but eventually what industry will demand is high performance and value. So what industry demands, whether we have to import it or we have to make our own or set up our own manufacturing plant for those raw materials, we will have to catch up too.
Okay. So the next question comes from Professor Joe Cruz. So even before the current pandemic, HEIs have been moving towards outcomes-based education, including external accreditation of engineering and computing programs. Alternative learning paths for individual students have been of paramount importance in outcomes-based learning and education. And we need to recognize that scholarship and research in engineering education as acceptable research endeavors. So the Batangas State University has recently embarked on a PhD in engineering education. Would you comment on the desirability of HEI faculty members pursuing scholarship and research in engineering and science? This is for Professor Bautista and Professor Alfonso, perhaps.
So my answer to that is we need it. This is the connecting now, especially for engineering schools that would not have, because we're shifted to outcomes based, but we're not yet there in the spirit of it. The methodology, the assessments are not yet there. So I guess we would need to have some of our engineering faculty go through a process it's I think okay to do that, but see to it that it is not going to be an inferior. The level and the quality of the program must be very high, because that was the problem with some of the education programs for science that's for the high school faculty. Sometimes the quality is not at that level. I don't know, maybe Gigi has her own way of looking at this.
I got disconnected. I just got back. I'm now in, sorry about that. So I think lahat yata in-answer na ni Doc Sage. I got lost, so I'm back. What is happening now? all over the country for the higher education institutions. We're really exploring everything, possible ways pick up of course packs and so on. And so we still don't know. The narrative goes on. So I'm sorry I cannot, I don't know what happened to Sage discussion, but I'm sure she has already answered
Okay,
them.
Gigi.
Thank you.
Professor
Thank you.
Alfonso, maybe just a follow-up. Since you mentioned course packs already, so Dr. Sean Raimundo is asking if the course packs and materials are available for other universities who are not yet into remote learning.
Oo. Yan ang wala pa ngayon mga open packages, but we are into OER, sharing all the content that can be used by everyone. However, the course packs should be done by the universities. I think, and we're doing a lot of training for that. And we hope eventually we'll have open sharing of course packs, but they're supposed to do that through consortia for coming out with materials and course packs. So
yeah, just one quick answer also to add to Gigi's. It's basically we have copyright issues. So that's something that we're dealing with now. It's okay because we're in under pandemic. It's easier to talk about the last mile. But the course, so what we're saying is even with the whole debate among lawyers about the copyright over course pack because the design and all. But we are now going to push for voluntary the voluntary sharing of course packs to other higher education institutions, and that's going to be a movement. I mean, we will.
And to sustain that, we need PAASE as well. And you know, and I'm so excited about the many titles. If there are people willing to go on OER for it to be shared freely, so that's the most important thing right now. Yeah, thank you.
So maybe Gobet can also comment on how this current situation of online learning will affect, for example, exploring alternative research such as additive manufacturing if the Philippines, for example, wants to take a part into that particular discipline.
A very good question, Kay. In fact, we've had back and forth in terms of online classes only for some universities, even here in the U.S. And some people, you know, are doing hybrid type of lecture. So I think the from what I hear, it's really adaptability. It's being creative to deliver content and at the same time make the students feel that they are part of the community. And what will be important here is really communication, demonstration. Now, in terms of labs, in terms of things that require hands-on, some of the alternative things we've seen is really dedicated technical staff or people who will run experiments for students. On the other hand, some portable equipment that can be delivered or given to students or cluster of students. They're thinking about those things. And some things really, I believe, will be temporary. I don't think this is a new normal. This is a crazy normal if it is. And one of these days we will graduate and go back to and talk about history. You know, this is historic, and we just talk about
and thank you for publishing in an open. You have this article. Yeah, and open access. Wonderful.
Anyone
Thank
can
you.
download it.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Anyone
correct,
can download.
Correct. Thank you for that.
Okay, sorry, but that's all the time we have for this particular panel. I hope that our audience would really reach out to our speakers if you want to discuss in more detail, because we have a few more speakers lined up today. So let me